Before cinematic universes ruled the box office, superheroes found life in the flickering glow of 1970s television. These weren't just shows. They were Saturday morning rituals, primetime experiments, and cult legends in the making. From bionic agents to underwater mysteries, these 15 superhero series shaped a generation. So strap in, spin around, and let's dive into the caped legacy of the 70s. 1. Wonder Woman, 1975 to 1979. Before the golden lasso glowed in theaters, it shimmered on television screens in the capable hands of Linda Carter. Wonder Woman debuted in 1975, and it wasn't just a superhero show, it was a revolution wrapped in satin tights and bulletproof bracelets. With her statuesque grace, Carter didn't just play Wonder Woman, she embodied her. Her version of Diana Prince was kind, intelligent, and fierce, delivering justice in a world still struggling to define what a strong woman could look like on screen. The first season took place during World War II, paying homage to the original comic book setting. But by Season 2, the show leapt forward to the 1970s, where Wonder Woman tackled Cold War spies, corrupt businessmen, and supernatural threats. Each episode brought more than action. It carried messages about integrity, equality, and strength of character. The transformation spin, the invisible jet, and that unmistakable theme song became pop culture staples. For young girls watching, this wasn't just television, it was empowerment. Carter's presence brought dignity and warmth, making Wonder Woman more than just a fighter. She was a symbol. The show's blend of camp and courage created a lasting legacy, paving the way for future female superheroes. And despite budget constraints and network meddling, Wonder Woman soared, because at its heart, it knew what it wanted to be, a beacon of strength in a world that needed heroes. 2. The Incredible Hulk, 1977 to 1982. There was no cape, no costume, just rage and sorrow, wrapped in green skin. The Incredible Hulk was unlike any superhero show of its time, more a tragedy than a tale of glory. Bill Bixby portrayed Dr. David Banner, a brilliant scientist haunted by his inability to control the monster within. Lou Ferrigno, hulking and silent, gave terrifying life to the Emerald Beast. Each episode followed a wandering Banner, trying to outrun both the reporter who hunted him and the fury inside. He moved from town to town, righting wrongs like a tortured gunslinger of the nuclear age. The transformation scenes, with shredded clothes and glowing eyes, were unforgettable. The show's quiet genius lay in its emotional core. This wasn't about powers, it was about pain, loneliness, and the price of unchecked emotion. Producer Kenneth Johnson focused more on drama than comic book flair, grounding the show in realism. Banner's alter ego wasn't a hero to be admired, but a curse to be feared. And yet viewers connected with his struggle, because who hasn't wrestled with their own darker side? The haunting piano theme, The Lonely Man, still resonates with fans today. It told us everything. The Hulk was powerful, but it was Banner's humanity that made him unforgettable. 3. Shazam, 1974 to 1977. In a world of grown-up superheroes, Shazam offered something different, a teenage boy with the wisdom of gods and the power to change lives. Billy Batson, played by Michael Gray, wasn't just another kid. He was chosen, gifted with the ability to become Captain Marvel by saying the ancient word Shazam. Billy traveled the country in a Winnebago with his mentor, the wise and mysterious Mentor. Each episode was a bite-sized parable. Billy and Mentor would encounter troubled townsfolk, bullies, liars, thieves, and use a mix of compassion and superpowers to solve moral dilemmas. Captain Marvel would swoop in when needed, but violence was always a last resort. Though the budget was low and effects modest, Shazam had something more valuable: heart. The show emphasized values like honesty, responsibility, and courage, making it feel more like a modern-day myth than a simple superhero story. Targeted at young viewers, it included safety tips and moral recaps at the end of each episode. Yet, its sincerity gave it timeless appeal. It wasn't just about changing into a hero, it was about growing into one. 4. The Secrets of Isis, 1975 to 1976. Before there was Buffy, before Xena, and long before Captain Marvel, there was Isis. Premiering in 1975 as the first weekly American television series starring a female superhero, The Secrets of Isis was quietly groundbreaking. Joanna Cameron played Andrea Thomas, a humble high school science teacher who discovered an ancient Egyptian amulet on an archaeological dig. When danger called, she would raise her hands and chant, "O mighty Isis," transforming into the goddess-like protector of justice. What made Isis stand out wasn't just its heroine, it was its message. Each episode was a lesson wrapped in adventure. Andrea didn't just stop criminals, she guided young people through moral crossroads. Lying, cheating, peer pressure. Isis confronted them all with wisdom, grace, and power. No spandex, no flashy special effects, just a strong woman in a cape teaching right from wrong. Part of the same universe as Shazam, Isis would occasionally team up with Captain Marvel, creating one of TV's earliest superhero crossovers. Yet, even on her own, she was a force. Children saw a woman command lightning and wind. They saw her lead, protect, and counsel. And most importantly, they saw her think. Though it ran for just one season, The Secrets of Isis left an indelible mark. It proved that superhero stories didn't need violence to be compelling, and that a woman could carry a cape and a classroom with equal authority. 5. Spider-Man, 1977 to 1979. Before CGI webs and billion-dollar franchises, there was a soft-spoken journalist in a loose-fitting red and blue suit climbing walls on network television. CBS's Spider-Man series, starring Nicholas Hammond, brought the beloved Marvel character into live-action reality for the first time. While it lacked the polished effects fans might expect today, it more than made up for it with heart, effort, and an earnest portrayal of Peter Parker's double life. This version of Spidey was less about quips and more about ethics. Hammond's Peter Parker was mature, thoughtful, and always trying to do the right thing. With limited budget and rudimentary stunt work, the show leaned heavily on practical effects. Watching Spider-Man scale buildings using hidden wires or fight criminals in slow-motion martial arts sequences felt thrilling in its day, even charmingly DIY by modern standards. Though the series took liberties, skipping famous villains like Green Goblin or Doc Ock, it focused instead on conspiracies, robberies, and social drama. The tone was serious, even procedural. But what carried it was Hammond's quiet sincerity. He was Peter Parker, humble, burdened, and driven by guilt and goodness. Fans today may chuckle at the show's stiff choreography, but back then it was magic. A boy could believe, just for a moment, that with great power truly came great responsibility, and a rope for climbing hotel walls. 6. Captain America, 1979. It wasn't the shield you expected, and it certainly wasn't the suit. But in 1979, Captain America made his live-action debut in a pair of made-for-TV movies that reimagined the Star-Spangled Avenger for a very different age. Played by Reb Brown, this version of Steve Rogers was less super soldier and more easygoing everyman, a former Marine-turned-artist who inherits his father's experimental serum and dons the mantle of Captain America. But this Cap didn't fight Nazis or Hydra. He rode a souped-up motorcycle, carried a clear plastic shield, and wore a helmet with wings painted on the side. The setting wasn't wartime Europe. It was 1970s California, with all its sun-soaked cheesiness. And yet, beneath the camp and budget constraints, there was sincerity. The show tried to translate the spirit of the comics into something new, something television audiences could digest. Reb Brown played Rogers with a likable, aw-shucks charm. He wasn't brash or aggressive, he was thoughtful, always choosing peace before violence, But when the moment came, he fought with precision and purpose. Whether foiling a corrupt businessman or outrunning helicopters, his determination remained unshaken. Though the films never became a full series, they carved out a unique place in superhero history. They captured a Cap trying to find relevance in a cynical post-Watergate world. And in doing so, they reminded audiences that sometimes being a hero means staying true, even when the stars on your shield are made of plastic. Seventh Doctor Strange, 1978. Long before the multiverse fractured in Hollywood blockbusters, Doctor Strange made his eerie debut in a 1978 made-for-TV movie that remains one of Marvel's most fascinating curiosities. Starring Peter Hooton as the titular sorcerer, this adaptation wasn't flashy. It was mystical, psychological, and steeped in the occult atmosphere of the decade. The film opens not with battles, but with dreams. Strange is a psychiatrist, not a surgeon, haunted by visions and unaware of his magical destiny. But the moment he's drawn into the secret war between good and evil, the narrative plunges into a surreal realm of floating dimensions, ancient powers, and a villainess played deliciously by Jessica Walter. She's Morgan Le Fay, timeless, powerful, seductive, and her goal is to pierce the barrier between our world and the beyond. The special effects were modest by today's standards, with swirling lights and kaleidoscopic portals standing in for spells. Yet they worked within their limitations, crafting a dreamlike tone that evoked the spirit of Steve Ditko's original comics. What Doctor Strange lacked in action, it made up for in atmosphere and philosophy. It dared to ask, what if magic wasn't flashy, but ancient, terrifying, and deeply human? Though it never launched into a full series, the 1978 Doctor Strange film earned cult admiration over time. It was weird, risky, and ahead of its moment. It didn't just try to be another superhero story, it tried to be something mystical, unknowable, and that ambition alone makes it worth revisiting. 8. Electra Woman and Dyna Girl, 1976. With sparkling jumpsuits, laser weapons, and an electric cave for a hideout, Electra Woman and Dyna Girl blazed onto Saturday morning TV in 1976 as a whirlwind of color, camp, and charisma. Produced by Sid and Marty Krofft, masters of psychedelic children's programming, the show leaned hard into the outrageous aesthetics of the superhero genre. But beneath the glitter, there was something revolutionary, a superhero duo led by two women. Deidre Hall starred as Electra Woman, a composed and fearless crime fighter, while Judy Strangis brought charm and energy to her sidekick, Dyna Girl. Together they faced off against villains with names like Glitter Rock, the Spider Lady, and the Sorcerer, each more bizarre than the last. The villains were cartoonish, the effects were primitive, and the sets were painted with every color in the rainbow. But kids tuned in every week because it was fun, and because these heroines got the job done. The show played like a low-budget Batman '66 with a feminine twist. Instead of brooding detectives, we got glamorous tech-savvy heroines who use science and gadgets to defeat their enemies. Their Electracoms, futuristic wrist devices, predicted everything from smartwatches to digital crime detection. What made Electra Woman and Dyna Girl special wasn't just its goofball charm. It was the fact that girls could finally see themselves as the stars, not the sidekicks. In a world of male heroes, these two fearless women proved they could battle evil with just as much flair and a little extra sparkle. 9. Batman, 1966 to 1968, syndication through the 1970s. Though its original run ended in 1968, Batman never really left television. It surged through the 1970s in syndication, beaming into living rooms with bam-pow energy that defined an entire generation's view of superheroes. Adam, West's straight-faced camp, and Burt Ward's over-the-top Robin became cultural touchstones, making Batman not just a show, but a phenomenon. Rebroadcasts in the 70s made it feel like a 70s superhero show, especially to younger audiences who never saw it live. Its bright primary colors, Dutch-angled fight scenes, and whimsical villains. The Joker, the Penguin, Catwoman drew in kids, while adults appreciated the deadpan humor and sly parody. Adam West's portrayal of Batman was unique, dignified yet ridiculous, noble yet completely in on the joke. He turned the Dark Knight into a moral compass, delivering lectures on good behavior between punches. And yet the show never lost its sense of fun. It was unapologetically absurd, gleefully theatrical, and deeply committed to its bizarre logic. By the time more serious superhero stories emerged in the 1970s, Batman had already paved the way, proving that comic book heroes could live on screen. Its influence on pop culture, fashion, and even comic book tone was massive. In reruns, it became a rite of passage, a vibrant gateway into the superhero world. Whether watched earnestly or ironically, Batman was unforgettable. It made heroes human, crime-fighting campy, and every cliffhanger a reason to tune in next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. 10. The Amazing Spider-Man, 1977 TV movie. It began as a one-shot experiment, a live-action television movie meant to test the waters. But The Amazing Spider-Man was more than a pilot. It was a cultural shift. For the first time, viewers saw Marvel's most iconic hero come to life in real streets, scaling real buildings in real time. No animation, no comics, just a man in a suit doing his best to save lives. Nicholas Hammond reprised his role as Peter Parker in this standalone film where Spider-Man uncovers a mind control plot orchestrated by a villainous hypnotist. It wasn't about supervillains or flashy battles. Instead, it leaned into suspense, conspiracy, and crime drama, melding comic book origins with grounded 70s storytelling. This movie was raw, experimental, and a little awkward. The costume looked stitched together at home. The web-swinging scenes were sometimes clunky. Yet, none of that mattered. Because for fans in 1977, it was real. For the first time, kids didn't need to imagine. They saw Spider-Man. What it lacked in budget, it made up for in intent. Hammond's Peter was sincere, a young man caught between responsibility and danger, just like in the comics. And that sincerity connected. The movie was a hit, leading to the full Spider-Man series on CBS shortly after. Today, it may feel dated. But back then, it was electric. It proved superheroes could move beyond the printed page and onto prime time. 11. The $6 Million Man, 1973 to 1978. We can rebuild him. We have the technology. With those words, television entered a new era of science fiction heroism. The $6 Million Man wasn't based on a comic book, but it became a superhero story all the same. Colonel Steve Austin, astronaut, test pilot, and survivor, underwent a life-saving surgery that turned him into something more than human. Bionic legs, a bionic arm, an eye that could zoom. He became the world's first cybernetic superhero. Played by Lee Majors with quiet authority, Austin wasn't flashy. He was methodical, moral, and deeply human. The show didn't rely on flashy gadgets or explosive powers. Instead, it emphasized the man behind the machine, his courage, restraint, and occasional anguish over what he'd become. Each mission brought danger. Each episode challenged his strength, both physical and emotional. Whether stopping runaway trains or leaping across buildings in slow motion, Steve Austin was the ultimate blend of soldier and science. The show's sound design became iconic. The rising electronic chime as Austin activated his powers, the slow-motion action sequences that felt like ballet in a world of violence, and the title itself became shorthand for transformation. He's the $6 Million Man. By blending spy thriller with superhero drama, the series didn't just entertain, it captivated. It reminded audiences that heroism wasn't about masks or capes. It was about surviving tragedy and using your second chance to do good. 12. The Bionic Woman, 1976 to 1978, spun off from the success of The $6 Million Man. The Bionic Woman introduced a new kind of heroine. Jaime Summers wasn't born a hero. She was rebuilt into one. Played with grace and strength by Lindsay Wagner, Jaime was a tennis pro and schoolteacher before a skydiving accident nearly ended her life. Rescued by bionic technology, she emerged faster, stronger, and more resilient than anyone imagined. But the Bionic Woman wasn't just a clone of its predecessor. It carved its own identity by emphasizing empathy, independence, and the emotional toll of being enhanced. Jaime wasn't a government asset. She was a woman trying to regain control of her life. Her powers were both a gift and a curse, and Wagner portrayed that duality with quiet vulnerability. The missions were thrilling, yes, full of espionage, sabotage, and daring rescues. But the show's real power came from its emotional beats. Jaime confronting identity, loneliness, and love lost. Unlike many action series of the era, the Bionic Woman wasn't afraid to pause, to ask what it really means to be more than human. The sound effects mirrored those of her male counterpart, but her impact was arguably greater. She became a role model for girls who had few action heroines to look up to. Jaime Summers wasn't perfect. She was real, and that made her super. Her legacy echoes in every powerful female character that came after her, from Sarah Connor to Buffy. Jaime walked so they could run, often in slow motion, with a sound effect that said the future was here. Here are the final 3 entries of your 15 must-watch 1970s superhero series script, each written in the same rich, cinematic style. 13. Super Friends, 1973 to 1986. Before the Avengers assembled on the big screen or the Justice League brooded in CGI shadows, there was Super Friends. Debuting in 1973, this Saturday morning cartoon became the cornerstone of superhero entertainment for an entire generation. It brought together the Holy Trinity of DC, Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman, alongside Aquaman, and a rotating cast of iconic heroes, all united in a cheerful mission to teach kids about teamwork, courage, and justice. Every episode opened in the Hall of Justice, where the heroes received missions via a massive computer screen. Whether saving the Earth from environmental disasters, alien invasions, or Lex Luthor's schemes, the Super Friends always responded with calm, clarity, and absolute moral authority. Their strength wasn't just in their powers, it was in their unity. Though aimed at children, the series tackled surprisingly big ideas: the dangers of pollution, the need for compassion, and the consequences of greed and ignorance. With characters like the Wonder Twins and their space monkey Gleek, the show injected humor and relatability into its larger-than-life cast. The animation was simple but iconic. The voice work, especially by legends like Casey Kasem and Danny Dark, helped cement these characters as household names. And for many viewers, Super Friends was their first exposure to the concept of a superhero team. It was innocent, idealistic, and sometimes downright silly. But Super Friends understood something essential, that superheroes are more than muscle and capes. They're symbols of hope, of unity, of doing the right thing, even when it's hard, and that's a message that's never gone out of style. 14th Man from Atlantis, 1977 to 1978. Long before Aquaman surfed on whales and swung a trident in blockbuster cinemas, Man from Atlantis swam into homes with webbed fingers, golden skin, and a mystery as deep as the ocean. Played by a young Patrick Duffy in his breakout role, Mark Harris was found washed ashore, barely alive, with no memory of his past. As it turned out, he wasn't entirely human. This short-lived but unforgettable series leaned into science fiction rather than comic book roots, blending superhero tropes with aquatic fantasy. Harris could breathe underwater, swim at astonishing speeds, and withstand oceanic pressures no normal man could survive. With the government's help, he joined a research team aboard the Cetacean, exploring the unknown and confronting threats from rogue scientists, mythical sea creatures, and occasionally hints about his own alien origins. Man from Atlantis wasn't flashy. It was serene, eerie, and often beautiful. The underwater sequences, while slow by today's standards, were mesmerizing. Duffy's swimming technique, developed just for the role, became iconic in its own right. The show asked questions rather than just throwing punches. What does it mean to be the last of your kind? What is home when you come from nowhere? Although it only lasted one season, the series built a cult following. Its thoughtful tone and environmental themes, paired with a truly unique hero, left a ripple effect in pop culture. In Mark Harris, audiences found a quiet, lonely man with the strength of the sea behind him. And like the tide, he never truly disappeared. 15. Legends of the Superheroes, 1979. If Super Friends was the dignified face of superhero unity, Legends of the Superheroes was its chaotic, polyester-clad cousin. Airing in 1979 as two NBC primetime specials, this live-action extravaganza threw together a roster of DC characters from Batman and Robin to Hawkman, Captain Marvel, and even obscure heroes like the Atom, in a surreal blend of sketch comedy, game show antics, and costumed mayhem. Think The Carol Burnett Show meets Justice League, only weirder. Adam West and Burt Ward returned to their iconic roles from the 1960s Batman, lending a strange legitimacy to the proceedings. But the rest of the cast was a parade of strange wigs, plastic weapons, and earnest line deliveries. The villains, Riddler, Mordru, Sinestro, formed a league of evil determined to destroy the heroes, while the good guys cracked jokes and stumbled through over-the-top scenarios. In one segment, they even hosted a superhero roast, where Ed McMahon insulted Green Lantern. Yes, really. Critics scoffed, audiences scratched their heads. But for a generation of comic fans hungry to see their favorite heroes in any form, it was a bizarre treasure. There was something oddly wonderful about seeing the Justice League, clunky suits and all, stand side by side in live action. It was cheesy, yes, campy, absolutely, but it was also ambitious in its own strange way. Today, Legends of the Superheroes lives on in cult status. It's a reminder of the pre-CGI era when superhero dreams were stitched together with foam rubber, dry ice, and a lot of hope. And sometimes, that's all you need to make legends. From campy crime fighters to mystical defenders, these series weren't just entertainment, they were milestones. They dared to dream in tights and Technicolor. If these heroes sparked your childhood memories or revealed hidden gems, like and subscribe for more retro journeys. The golden age of television superheroes? It started right here, in the wild, wonderful 1970s.